Thank you, Ed. And first of all, thanks for all of you to stay for this end-of-day presentation, and thanks for LSI for the invitation. My name is Kelly Huang. I'm CEO of Elucid. Elucid, we are a Boston AI Medtech company dedicated to generating algorithms to place on top of coronary CT scans to give doctors the ability to non-invasively assess flow blockage, assess plaque composition, and ultimately the risk of heart attack and stroke. We look at this as our first step into getting into precision-guided diagnostics and therapeutics for coronary artery disease. Now, the problem is real. Despite all of the advancements in drug therapy, interventional therapies, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer globally. 18.5 people a year die from coronary cardiovascular disease, and a tremendous amount of spend. Interestingly, World Health says 80 to 90% of these are preventable, so why are they not being prevented? And that's going to better diagnostics. So we already see this shift of $20 billion nuclear cardiology diagnostic market going to a CT scan, where you can look directly at the plaque buildup within the arteries. And at Elucid, we look to amplify and accelerate that to a $40 billion market because we add better value of not just how much stenosis is present, but the flow rate non-invasively and the type of plaque non-invasively. So that information gives the doctor a better way to get precision-guided diagnostics and therapeutics. The key insight to take away is in these 4 steps. This was developed by Dr. Amir Mahdi, who's our chief science advisor, and he did this with the renowned cardiologist Dr. Jagat Narula and Motoyama. And it comes down to first, plaque forms with lipid infiltration into the wall. That could be inflamed, lipid oxidation, macrophil infiltration. And as that inflammation grows, it becomes necrotic, or it starts killing cells that it touches. And if it grows enough to kill the cells that are affecting that thin cap that protect the inner vessel from that inflammation, well, shear stress comes along with blood flow, can break the cap, and therefore you have a thrombosis that leads to a heart attack and a stroke. So clearly, lesion-level understanding of plaque is important for understanding how to solve this mystery of why heart attack and stroke remain the #1 killer. We look at the solution with Elucid's two-product set. First, it's Plaque IQ. We had this recently FDA cleared, and we're in the limited market release right now as we speak. We're the only plaque product that's validated against ground truth histology, objective, quantifiable. So we created CT virtual histology, totally non-invasive manner to measure components of plaque, the calcified, non-calcified, and importantly, that lipid-rich necrotic core. That is the reason why heart attacks and stroke happen. And then we take that plaque analysis and feed into an AI algorithm to predict the flow, FFR value. And this is the only product that takes an AI algorithm based on plaque to predict flow. It makes a ton of sense to use biology and plaque composition to understand effective flow, because as we heard today, vasodilation is very much affected with these plaque components, and AI can pick that up where computation has a difficult time. So the doctor is going to do a plaque analysis for you and think about medical treatment. If you've got just stable plaque, you'll probably get middle-of-the-road statin. If it turns out that you have high lipid-rich necrotic core, that inflamed component, you're going to get aggressive statin, probably anti-inflammatory therapy, dual platelet therapy, and they're going to want to see you back in a couple of years to see how you're progressing. Now, the flow is simply looking at if there's any blockage. If this number is below 0.8, they're going to send you to the cath lab for an invasive coronary angiography. So really valuable. Everyone's got a personal story with 1 in 2 adults of about 45 having coronary artery disease. I could tell you my story. My father passed away at 52 of a heart attack and a stroke. I'm well over 52. Before this, I always had every time I had a problem in my chest, I'm like, oh boy, it's happening. Had my Elucid done. Doctor says, look, there's no LRNC. Your flow is not blocked. You have less than 20% stenosis. We've got your LDL below 70. You will never have a heart attack in your life. And the value of that, the weight it takes off my shoulders, is priceless. And this is being recognized by commercial payers and by government payers. So FFR, that flow value, is now Category 1 covered, about $1,000 an exam for a report in the United States. Impressively, about 3 years ahead of what everyone thought, the plaque analysis is now covered for 70% of Medicare eligible. And surprisingly as well, in 1 year, January 2026, it's going to Category 1 code, which is opening the door to universal coverage among commercial payers. So that's a big deal. We also see that the government has increased and doubled the reimbursement for CT scans itself. So that conversion of that $20 billion market to nuclear is happening faster with that, and we're going to add on plaque and FFR to give more value. And this is how we see the market. I don't know any market that's 38 billion TAM globally, and in the US is actually growing more than 60% currently. So before 2022, it was a rather flat market. What happened in 23 is it doubled. And why did it double? Well, in 2021, Medicare covered 70% of Medicare eligible, and then it became Category 1 in 2024. So in advance of that, universal coverage started happening. That lifts the market. So why do we think it's going to happen and continue to happen? Well, now you have plaque. Just over Thanksgiving, 70% of Medicare eligible became covered for plaque analysis. And instead of 3 years, in just 1 year, it's going to Category 1, and we're certainly working with industry groups to make sure commercial payers are ready in 2026 to cover their Advantage customers as well as their commercial customers. So we see this massive growth in this market that make it very attractive for our AI add-on solutions. So the basis of our technology, which is different than others, is we did the hard work of clinical trial. Patient had a CT scan, vessels harvested, sent to Renew Vermani, the world's expert pathologist, sectioned it, put on slides, and stained it, so it's quantifiable. You can stain LRNC, stains differently than necrotic core, stains differently than calcified, non-calcified. You can absolutely quantify, and it's subjective. So with that, we just took the CT slice and the pathology slice and had the algorithm learn over and over again. And that gives the algorithm the ability to see what the radiologist can't, which is that necrotic core. So again, we're CT virtual histology, and we're the only non-invasive that can measure and quantify that lipid-rich necrotic core, the inflammatory part of the plaque. Now, others in the market, they do this a different way. They use, instead of our objective quantifiable data, they use visual assessment, which is subjective and has variability. Two different experts will judge the same CT scan differently, and even the same expert over time may judge the same scan differently. Your model will never be less variable or more accurate than your ground truth, and our ground truth is histology. So they define ranges of Hounsfield units, the brightness on the grayscale that they look at the CT scan, and these experts cannot see the lipid-rich necrotic core, so they make a technical definition of low attenuation plaque, which it is true, it attenuates plaque less, and they say that could be a concern. Now, lipid-rich necrotic core is down there, but also non-threatening fatty fibrous tissue, healthy wall also exists down there. So I liken it to trying to stop guns at an airport. You're going to be able to stop guns, but you're often going to find wristwatches and bracelets and belt buckles that really are not threatening. So when the decision is to send someone to an invasive procedure, you really want the gun detector, and that's where we come in with the only non-invasive measure of that lipid-rich necrotic core. So you can divide the market. There are invasive and non-invasive ways to look at plaque composition. There are those that are validated against visual assessment and validated against biology. And again, Elucid is the only non-invasive that's validated against ground truth biology. So that plaque product is cleared. We're working on getting our FFR product based on plaque, the AI algorithm, into FDA the second half of the year. And we look to, at the end of 25, have the best plaque product and the best flow product in one to offer the market. And for this, we're looking at doing a capital raise. We've been the most capital efficient company to date with less than 130 million invested. We closed an 87 million Series C a little over a year ago and have the bulk of that money left. We look at a Series D to come at $100 million to basically step on the gas for commercial, to bring these two products to market fully across the United States, for clinical trials for new features and products, to advance AI for image analysis, and to develop the clinical partnerships that leverage multiple uses of CT virtual histology. We've got a proven team as well as a proven technology. A lot of people recognize Scott Hennekins with multiple unicorn exits in cardiology, and Dr. Amir Ahmadi at Mount Sinai, our chief medical advisor. And just in summary, what we're talking about is, the first FDA-cleared CT virtual histology, and we're going to have the best FFR product on top of that, best plaque product. There's a large underserved market, 38 billion global TAM in the US, growing 50-60%. And then we have the robust clinical pipeline. There are multiple uses of CT virtual histology. The first use case is plaque and flow, which is a 38 billion TAM. And lastly, we're starting right now contracting on the plaque alone product, and by the end of next year, we're going to build a sales team to take across the country the best plaque and the best FFR. So thank you for taking the time to learn about Elucid.